Hi guys, this is 17th of August 2020 and I'm Tony Mitra in Delta, BC, Canada, and here's my update for today. I have distanced myself from local protest against mask and social distancing and cashless and tracking services and vaccine coming down the line and all that. It's not because I like them. I don't like the restrictions. I don't believe COVID-19 is a threat big enough to cripple humanity and the society and its economy for Canada or any other country. However, I'm creating a distance which is now, I think, reasonably well known because I'm fed up with aimlessness of the resistance movement. Now, in this whole thing, the problem for me has been to find out what is the right thing to do. I have been an activist a long time, and when I try to do something for the benefit of the society or whatever, and if my efforts are not proving successful, I would not continue to do it, but rather I would step back and think if there is something else I could do and find some other way to deal with it. And occasionally it has helped, and one of them is when I step back from joining various groups and trying to find ways to deal with it myself. Now, in this whole situation that's happening now with regard to COVID-19, it's an extraordinary one. It is all unparalleled in human history in a way, and definitely unparalleled in our lifetime. And one of the most significant statements on this whole thing has come from a friend of mine. A couple of my friends have made significant comments. Most of them that I know on social media, for instance on Facebook or personally, most of them are not activists, in the sense most of them don't go to the side of the street with a banner or with something written on their t-shirt and so on. Most of them don't. One or two do. So out of the Facebook savvy presence that is well known in certain circles of the social media, one person has been Leszek, or Les. He is a Polish Canadian, lives nearby here in Lower Mainland British Columbia, and he is currently in Europe. He had made a comment that I have no problem sharing because he made the comment in public under his own name, and that is, he finds that the New World Order, whoever is taking control of the whole planet, they will find it a cakewalk to control every Commonwealth country. And he named Australia, New Zealand, Canada, and even UK. I find it one of the most profound observations out of all these various people that say various things. There is another guy who made a reasonably profound observation himself. I will not take his name because he told me personally, privately over a phone. He didn't give me permission to share it with anyone, so I will not take his name. But he is also an Indo-Canadian, like me. He was born in India. He migrated here a long time before I did. I have been, circling around the whole planet and gone over many places, lived in many places, worked in many places before I ended up in Canada. And before that I was about many years in USA. So my case is different, but this guy came a long time before me. He is not from this area. He is not my neighbor. And he made an interesting statement on the phone. He has been attending some of these protest marches for some time now, some months now. And he told me that one of the root causes for why these protests are not going anywhere, in his view, is that there is no leadership quality. Nobody has any leadership quality, and if you don't have good leaders, you can't attract, followers. Well, that's also a profound statement in some way. But however, I personally would I would like to make a follow-up conversation on the comment made by Les about why Commonwealth countries will be a cakewalk for them. And this has made me realize also what one might do if you happen to be living in one of those countries. I think USA is also more or less the same. It has changed a bit, but there is some similarity. All the English speaking countries, primarily English speaking countries with perhaps the exception of Ireland and a few pockets here and there, primarily the English speaking countries have been the most attractive for migration for the rest of the world, people who want to make a career and have a good time. They have been the symbol of freedom and liberty and honesty and so on for almost 100 years now, or maybe a little less, and they have been attractive to a whole lot of people, and this has also given them, the people living in those countries, the kind of a notion that they are better than everybody else, and they have, that is why their lifestyle is so high, that is where the systems are so functional, so efficient, and this is why this is the place for people who have talent to make their buck, and this is where best people in the world should congregate. And this has this feeling has cemented over several generations. My observation on why Les made that statement, why these countries will be a cakewalk, is something, he said that these countries have no history of popular resistance, and that is one reason they will not be able to provide any meaningful resistance. And one could combine these two, the other statement that there is a lack of leadership, and then Les's statement that these countries are going to be cakewalks. Could one say that because they have no history of resistance, they are not going to be able to provide good leadership? Or is it because they never had good leadership that they have never had a history of resistance? I personally think neither of those assumptions would be correct. They do not have a history of resistance because, in my view, analysis, these societies in each of these countries, Australia, New Zealand, USA and Canada, and also England, the societies are based historically on exploitation of other people. First of all, the colonies outside of England, Australia, New Zealand, USA and Canada. This is where a small number of immigrants from the British Isles essentially commandeered huge pieces of land, unbelievably large pieces of land, and near exterminated the locals, disenfranchised them, and literally looted unbelievable stretches of land, absolutely unbelievable stretches of land. Land that is as far as eye can go. You can travel on a horse for a month and you still don't come to the other end. This kind of huge stretches of land was looted by these immigrants, this Calvinists, this English speaking, from the British Isles. Yes, they had caliber, they had strong navy, they had a good infrastructure, they had a good commercial system, they have good banking system, they had a system that could support this kind of colonization, that could make such colonizations possible. But however, nonetheless, the high lifestyle, not only in these countries or in England, was based on this exploitation. It was not that every Australian or every American or every Canadian was having a high lifestyle. It was only the white settlers that had reasonably high lifestyle, and at the cost of everybody else. So the entire civilization is based on exploitation. The entire system, economic, industrial, agriculture, whatever you want to call it, They were all based on taking something away from other people. This is one reason I think that these people are part of a collaborator class, and they are not going to be able to resist them being exploited. They have never experienced it. This is what Les was trying to say. They have no history of resistance because they were the ones that were exploiting other people. They had no reason to resist, and that has sunk down, and that is partly how the psychology has been formed in these people's mind. Mind it, the English speaking Europeans were not the only exploiters. There were Spaniards and Portuguese that also did a lot of things in many parts of the world, including all of Latin America, but there's a small difference, which is why those countries have not reached the level of sophistication and wealth and power as the English speaking ones, and that is they were not as cruel. Yes, they have done enormous cruelty. They finished off Aztec and Mayan civilizations and killed an enormous number of people for gold and this and that. Nonetheless, eventually they came to love the land and the people, local people. They intermingled with them, they cross-married with them, they picked up their cultural heritages, their belief systems to a large extent. They created a composite of what they brought in from Europe and what they adapted from local, and they created a new society which is more tolerant and less separatist, that I am white and you are black and you are brown and blah blah blah. So this is, you can say, while comparing with the Anglo-Saxons, this is their weakness, and that is why they did not bring their country to that high level, because they could not exploit enough. On the other way of saying, or when you look at it from the other side, they might be better suited for the future because they did not depend on exploitation wholly compared to these guys. Anyway, so now immigrants, people like us, who want to make a good living everywhere, and they migrate like crazy. You got to migrate out of India, out of Pakistan, out of Africa, out of wherever the hell you are, East Europe, from Poland, from Romania, from Czechoslovakia, Yugoslavia, Croatia, or everywhere, Belarus. Got to go to Canada, USA, or Australia. Life is made, because then life is good. You work hard, you earn a lot of money, you have beer, you have good house, and all fun. All this is, in a way, selfish. People are genetically selfish. Everybody wants to better their own life. But this is also one reason why, at least in Canada, majority of the people who are protesting this lockdown and all that are immigrants from countries where they have experienced exploitation, where they had to fight for freedom, and they can recognize it quick enough when freedom is slipping away. This is one of the reasons. They are not numerous, they are not overwhelming in numbers, and therefore they are not going to make much of a difference. But this is how today when you go to protest rallies, you see them more often. From my point of view, these are the reasons why I feel Les said that Commonwealth countries are going to be a cakewalk. There is something else that I think it is going to be a cakewalk for, whether Commonwealth or otherwise, and that is majority of the people are behaving like surface dwellers. They jump up and down and react violently and gear up to protest. What is on the surface, the little symptoms of this current level of planet scale exploitation being conducted, like social distancing, like lockdown, like wearing a mask and tracking software and vaccines coming. All of them are unwanted, all of them are horrible, but they are all steps towards an end. Almost nobody is thinking about what is the end, what is the real purpose behind all this, and how to address that purpose, how to address that rot, that disease that these are all symptoms of. If we can kill the disease, all this will disappear. Nobody wants to talk about it, and this is why they behave to me more like controlled opposition. I have had a history of resistance here for clean food and environmentally friendly food and non-toxic food and non-pesticides in the environment and food system and all that, and I have seen, while in my years of activism, that most of the famous groups would not touch the root causes. They would not. They will only spend a lot of energy on surface issues which are only symptoms, and fighting them doesn't produce any doesn't make any difference. Business can continue as usual. They will concentrate on those. They will get more membership, more people to join them. They will make lots of protests and lot of rallies, lot of placards, lot of signs, all of them wasted towards superficial issues. That issue, this issue, this issue. Nobody wants to touch the root causes, and it took me 5 years of wasted energy till I found out that these groups were controlled opposition, knowingly or unknowingly. They were controlled opposition. They were working on behalf of the same group I was protesting. Everybody was protesting. They were controlled by them, knowingly or unknowingly. They were doing exactly what those guys, those agrochemical industries wanted you to do. They wanted you to spend your energy and frustration on insignificant issues, temporary issues, issues that will make you feel good because you are shouting and venting your frustration, but it will not solve the problem. That is where they want you to be concentrated, and that is exactly what these groups are doing. It took me 5 freaking years to figure that out, and then I separated myself. I started working as a lone ranger, which is a lonely path. It took me another 5 years to get the government of Canada to acknowledge my concern and start doing something about it, which is testing the food for pesticides. I don't want to go into that. The main thing is, today's resistance group seem to behave exactly like controlled opposition, whether they know it or they don't know it. Les has touched a very important issue, why he thinks that he thinks Commonwealth countries are a cakewalk. They are going to be a cakewalk. I think one of the reasons it goes back historically to why these Commonwealth countries are going to be a cakewalk, because exploitation is subconsciously into their mentality. They cannot resist because they have been part of the other side that have been exploiting others, the humanity, the land, the ecosystem, the planet. It is in their blood, whether they realize it or don't realize it. They like to pretend that they want to fight for freedom. Yeah, it's good to pretend because you know. And people like us who come here for selfish reasons try to ride on the, join the bandwagon. Life is good, even if it's based on exploitation, even if it's based on exploitation of your own people. What the hell? I'm still would like to. So these kind of mentalities are very common, which is why it is so hard to find someone who is a deep thinker, who can delve deeper, try to find what is the root cause and what should one do about it. Staying in Facebook is similar to that addiction, staying in YouTube and all that, but these are all different issues. I just wanted to make my short video, I don't know how long I talked today, of why I think Commonwealth countries are going to be a cakewalk, like Les said, why I think so. And only once one realizes some of these things, one can even think about what to do next. I wish we had 100, 200 people in Canada who had this depth of thought so that they could get together and try to delve deeper I'm sure there are 100 or 200, but finding them is extremely hard. I'm not going to find them by being on Facebook. I am not going to find them by making this video. We are not even encouraged to travel anymore. How to find them is a $1 billion question. I don't know how to find them. The one or two that are there, they are not on Facebook and they are not on social media. Most of them are very elderly, getting along. They don't have energy anymore. I'm 70 years old. I should be fuck bothered. I mean, let the youngsters kill themselves. Why should I worry myself? Unfortunately, as long as you have a working brain, as long as you have a healthy body, I'm not sick. I've never been sick. I've never taken a vaccine for bloody so many decades, and I've never got an infectious disease. So when you are active, your mind is active. You want to use it meaningfully. So we cannot not do anything. We cannot just sit and say, to hell with the rest of the world. Let me live another 6 months, 1 year, and then I'll shoot myself because the world is going crazy. I don't want to live like a slave, so I'll get a gun from somewhere and bang. Well, when that happens, that happens. But in the meantime, we cannot just give it up. So that's why it is so interesting for me. It is so urgent for me to try to find like-minded people who I can talk meaningfully with, not superficially with, not talk rubbish. So I may have some ideas which are wrong. I would like to have somebody who is just as deep and can correct me. I can correct him or her, and it's nice to hang out with the right kind of people, to try to make sense of why this world is going out. I think Les got it right, that Commonwealth countries are going to be a cakewalk. So maybe we should look outside of Commonwealth countries. Maybe there is somebody who can speak a language that I can understand. Maybe we can both speak English or some other language. Unfortunately, I don't speak Russian, I don't speak German, and I don't speak French. And I can understand Spanish, muy poquitito, and I can more or less understand what they say if they speak slowly, but I cannot converse with them in Spanish. I can understand it more or less because I spent some time in South America and various countries. I don't want to talk about it anyway now. So this is what it is. We are all, I am at least looking for like-minded people I can converse with. I am not any more interested, at least not now, of people who join protest marches and give lectures and all that is just waste. But I wish, well, Les is one. He's a good guy to stay in touch with, and that's it for now. I have already talked enough. Cheers.